Hi, this is Am, and today I am going over some results of tests that I did with different mediums. This is freezer paper. This is the waxy shiny side, and I'm mostly doing this because I want to memorialize it for me. So if I forget in the future, or I lose this paper, or some of these things drop off because they're already starting to fall off, and I've had to glue some of them back on or tape some of them back on. I could use it to refer to, and I thought I'll turn the camera on. Maybe someone else might be interested. I was testing for a couple things. One is, uh, pliability. Are they rigid? Are they stiff? The other one is, what kind of coloration are they after they dry? And then what kind of sheen do they have? And maybe some other things that I'll mention when I go over it. I don't know how many there are here. There's a lot because I just took out a bunch of stuff that I had and experimented. So if you want to watch me go over each one, I'll tell you what it was and then just my thoughts about it. And then that way, if it looks like something that you might be interested in, you'll know, and then you can look it up. Some of the ones that I personally prefer and use the most, I might be able to also put a link down below for quick reference if you want to take a look at that. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, let's get started. I guess we'll just take it slow and start at one corner. Let's start with this is Liquitex modeling paste. And what I did was I just took a little spatula and laid it down. And you can see that when you bend it, which is no surprise, it cracks. So it goes on an opaque white, but it cracks. So, you know, obviously, stating the obvious here, you're going to want to use something like this on a more rigid background, not something that's pliable. This one is Deco Art Ultramatte Medium. And you can see where, I've already had to tape it on because it wanted to fall off, but you can see how it's nice and pliable. And it is very matte. I'll turn the paper, get a little more, uh, try to help so you can see. And it's very matte, very pliable. There's the Deco Art, or the Liquitex, you can see where they're. The next one is Americana Duraclear Gloss, towards the upper left a little bit, and then it kind of puddled into it, which is this one down here, the Deco Art Pouring Medium. So we're talking about these two, and the pouring medium actually ended up merging with the Duraclear. So the Duraclear is more true right over here. And as you can see, it's pretty glossy. So is the pouring medium. The pouring medium, of course, is intended for people who do acrylic pours. And you can see that, yes, it is very thin and pliable. But it lays down a very thin coat. The Duragloss Clear is a little bit thicker, and they're both very glossy, and they're both bendy. The next one is the Liquitex Gesso, and then we'll talk about the Dina Wakley's Clear Gesso and Floetrol. And I'm bringing them all up to the camera to kind of, so you can see the sheen before I take it down lower, and we'll talk about it. So the Liquitex Gesso is another one that will crack a little bit, although it's not really cracking too bad. Well, here, let me lift it off. Yeah, actually it's pliable. It's a lot more pliable than the Liquitex modeling paste. So, yeah, it's pliable. Let me get my tape so I can tape it back down. I don't want to lose the location. Then the Dina Wakley Clear Gesso, it kind of dried this. Now it's a little thick. I don't know if you can tell how thick it is, but this one area here, as you can see, this is thinner and this is thicker, and where you pile it on thicker, you're going to get more of that brownish tone. So That's what that is, and it's somewhat pliable, but it's kind of rigid. It's rigidly pliable, but it's not nearly as pliable as, say, something like this. But then again, this is a lot thinner than this section here. Floetrol is something that I got at the hardware store, and it can be used to dilute down acrylic paints. And it's very thin. It's sort of like the pouring medium in the sense that it kind of puddles and flows out and leaves a very thin surface. And it is also very pliable. It's kind of a satinish matte finish. And then glossy accents, acrylic basic clear gesso up here. Well, I don't know where that went. I don't know where, oh, maybe that's what this is. I was wondering what the heck this is, because this does not go over here. This should go here. I was looking at that earlier going, how'd that get there? This is glossy accents. Let's bring this up real quick so we can take a closer look at what we're going to talk about now. Glossy accents, Art Basic Clear Gesso, and Fabric Fusion, and then we'll go talk about Fabric Tack and Elmer's Craft Bond in this section. Glossy accent is glossy. It lays down a it doesn't puddle, but it's fairly thin. I don't think I smoothed it out a little bit. Maybe I did. I don't know. I can't remember. It's a little pliable. Another one of those kind of rigidly pliables, but it's pliable. This is the Art Basic Clear Gesso, so you can just see between the Dina Wakley and the Art Basic. And it's also pliable. Even though it's a clear gesso, it's a lot more opaque than the Dina Wakley. It seems like to me. This seems just more transparent. This seems more opaque, but then I could have put it on thicker than the other one. But that's both clear gessos. Craft Elmer Bond. Now this one I know I did smooth out, and even most of the things that we've talked about so far, when you touch them, there's not really, this has a little drag, but it's not really sticky, but there is some drag. There's no drag here. This is very smooth, very smooth. This has kind of got a gritty texture. This is smooth. But it still has kind of a sticky texture. I don't think that I would use it as an overlay on something like some of these other products, but definitely for gluing, because it's still sticky, and I bet you could get some dirt to hang on there. The Fabric Fusion, you can kind of see where you got a little ripple in there, but that's good. I like using it for gluing fabric. It's very flexible, a little bit shiny. Fabric Fusion. And then Fabric Tack is, well, that's a weird sound, is very brittle in the sense that it's, well, it's not brittle in that it's breaking, but it's not super pliable. And it also, I don't know if you can tell, but it also, let me get something to use as a background, because my hands are horrible. I'm always gardening and doing stuff, so nobody wants to see that. But see how it left bubbles? It does more bubbly stuff than a lot of things do. But again, Fabric Tack works well for fabric. Now let's see what we have over here. Polycrylic, which you can't even see it on the paper, but it's there. See, now you can see with the sheen. The Polycrylic, and then Minwax Polycrylic. the difference is I have a Minwax polycrylic, and then the other polycrylic is like a wood hardener. I got it in a gallon jug, and it's just called a wood hardener. This one's Minwax. I got it from the department, or from the hardware store. It was hold on, I've got a hand down here. This one I'll take the time to show you. This was just Minwax polycrylic protective finish. That's what that was. That's this one. And then over here is art glitter glue. And then we'll talk about deco art Podge, like a deco art Podge. Elmer's glue. And then PVA bookbinding glue. Liquitex, what's that? Liquitex matte medium. Liquitex gloss medium. And Liquitex gloss medium and varnish. Alright, so let's talk about those real quick. See, we left off at the fabric tack, and we did not talk about the dimensional dim magic. Dimensional magic. I think it's an Aleene's. That's this one. I don't know why I got a bubble when I poured it. It's ooh, okay. Well, that's brittle. That's brittle like the diamond glaze that we're going to talk about in a minute. Okay, so the dimensional magic is kind of the same family of use that the glossy accent is, and the diamond magic, which we'll talk about in a minute. And this is brittle, so again, you probably want to use it on something with a little bit more of a rigid surface. What was this? Glossy accents. Okay. The polycrylic is very thin. It's almost like water. Like I said, you can't hardly see it. Let me see if I can get it off of here. There, I broke the seal. But you can see how thin it is. And it's so thin that what would you call it? It didn't crack. Well, it is kind of cracking. Here's a piece. So it's so thin that it's kind of breaking up when I'm taking it off of the paper. Then the Minwax polycrylic, it's pretty thin, not nearly as thin as that one. It's got some rigid flexibility. Can you hear that? I don't know how to explain it. It's pliable, but it's rigid. And then the art glitter glue is very pliable, and it has sort of a satiny, frosty kind of finish. Then the Deco Art Podge, it's just like a decoupage, only it's Deco Art brand, is pliable. Elmer's glue, kind of what you'd expect. It's got that milky color to it. Now, it doesn't have any real stick like the Elmer's Craft Bond does. But that's how that goes. And then the PVA bookbinding glue. And I'm not sure why I have two things here. Oh, this is the PPA matte. Okay, this is the bookbinding glue. And you can see it's not as milky color as the Elmer's. It's got a slight milky color to it, but not as much as the Elmer's glue. And here's the Liquitex matte medium. Same thing, it's kind of got a milky color, and actually I'm kind of surprised at how milky that is. That's the Liquitex matte medium. Liquitex glazing medium. It's very clear, pliable, and that's why it would be good for a glazing medium. Then we've got the Liquitex gloss, and this is Liquitex gloss and varnish medium. It's kind of the same thing. It's as the glazing medium, only I think it's very pliable, very clear, very shiny. Then we've got the, I guess if I'm going to bring it up to the camera, I don't need to hold this whole thing up. Excuse me for reaching. This is tacky glue that we're going to talk about next. And it is, again, sort of like the Elmer's glue. It's got that milky color, kind of a satiny sheen. Very it's pretty pliable. And then Collage Podge, which kind of surprised me. I did a video where I did a test with Collage Podge, matte media, Mod Podge matte medium, and something else. And I was talking about how Collage Podge made the paper change colors where the, excuse me, the Mod Podge matte medium didn't. And here's why. Well, you can see it better on the white paper. See how it kind of went a slightly deeper shade? It didn't stay clear like some of these other things. So that must be why it affected the paper when I was using it. And I made that comment. It's got a kind of a frosty texture, very pliable. So that's Collage Podge, whoever makes Collage Podge. Don't remember. This is matte Mod Podge. So you can see, make sure it's on camera, Collage Podge, how brown, and the matte Mod Podge is much clearer. It's got a little bit of amber tint, but not nearly as much as the Collage Podge. It's very, actually, it's not quite as bendy. The Collage Podge is very bendy. And then this one is not as, it's pliable, but it's not as bendy as that. That's the Collage Podge. And then we have the, this is dishwasher Mod Podge. And it's shiny. It's very shiny. And I use it for things like coasters or things that I want to do water stuff over that I don't mind a glossy finish. And they say to either heat set it or to let it sit for, I think it's something like 28 days before you use it if you're going to do something with water on it. But that's dishwasher Mod Podge. PPA gloss, perfect paper adhesive, comes in, I've got it in gloss and matte, and you can see where it is pliable and clear and shiny. And then the PPA matte is definitely more sheeny. It's also very pliable. And last we have the Judikins, which is clear, but like the Dimensional Magic, it snaps, it breaks. So again, using it on rigid stuff. So I think we've talked about everything on here. That's all I wanted to show you today. Just in case you're wondering about what some of these products do. My favorites that I use a lot are matte Mod Podge. I'm a matte Mod Podge fiend. I like the Dina Wakley Gesso in thin amounts. The Art Basic is okay, but this works good over over things that I want to take the shine down, as long as I use the really thin, you know, in a thin manner so that it's kind of transparent. I also like the Minwax Polycrylic a lot for certain applications. Now, when I'm talking about the Polycrylic and the Gesso and the Mod Podge, those are things that I use mostly for top coats, gluing down. Like, for example, when I'm using flowers, I will take a flower, no, I took them up already, and I'll take a paintbrush with a Mod Podge, and I will paint the back with the Mod Podge, and then I will stick that down and then put a thin layer on top. The polycrylic I oftentimes can use as a top coat, and same with the gesso. A lot of these can be used as top coats. Others I just use for glue. If I'm gluing, it just depends, on what the use is. If I'm doing fabric, or I like the PVA glue for some of the bookbinding situations. I like the PPA matte and the PPA gloss. Actually, I use quite a few of these. So anyway, I'm starting to ramble now, so I'll start cutting it off. And just check out your needs. A lot of you probably already use a lot of these products so that you know what they are, but maybe there's something you've been thinking about and you want to compare and contrast it to something else. And so hopefully this will help. And now I have it to where I can refer back to it in the future if I ever lose this sheet or lose some of the pieces off here. So again, thank you for tuning in, and you have a wonderful day.